I know. You saw the title of the thumbnail and you showed up with pitchforks in hand, but hear me out before you make your judgment. I promise I'm going to make a well thought out and nuanced case. But first, let me just say probiotics might be the most overrated health supplement on the planet, and in some cases, they could actually make you sicker. There, I said it. That probiotic you're popping every morning, it could be leaking bacteria into your bloodstream and no one's warning you about it. Billions of bacteria in one pill sounds impressive until you realize your gut was never meant to handle that kind of microbial flood all at once. I've been talking about the microbiome intermittently in some other videos, and I had this pull to cover the topic totally. It's an overhyped science, and I think there's just a lot of conflicting evidence out there. But you've probably heard someone say your gut bacteria control your mood, your immune system, even your metabolism. I'm not going to rehash that whole point because I covered your mood in a different video. But you've seen ads for gut tests, probiotic supplements, and fermented foods promising to fix everything. But how much of this is actually true and how much of it is clever marketing wrapped in weak science? In this video, we're breaking down the gut microbiome, and I'm going to present 3 different studies that show exactly how probiotics can be harmful and even interfere with life-saving interventions. There's real promise in microbiome research. It's still new, but the gap between what the data says and what gets sold to you is massive. If you want to take gut health seriously, you're better off looking at what's on the plate instead of what's in those capsules. So what even is the gut microbiome? The gut microbiome is a massive collection of bacteria, viruses, fungi, however you want to say it, don't come at me, and also other microorganisms living mostly in your large intestine. We're talking trillions of microbes. You've likely heard that there are more of them than human cells in your body. They're not just passive passengers either. They help you digest food, regulate the immune system, produce key compounds, and may even influence brain function. That's where things get a little bit murky, though. Most of the attention goes to bacteria, and for good reason. They help break down fiber, produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, and support immune signaling. All 3, bacteria, viruses, and fungi, make up the gut ecosystem. When they're in balance, they help keep you healthy. When they're off, it can create inflammation, digestive problems, or worse. You may hear the word virus and immediately have alarm bells ringing in your head. Yes, some viruses are beneficial. Bacteriophages infect and kill specific bacteria, helping regulate microbial balance. Think of them as population control. They can prevent overgrowth of harmful strains. They also play a role in gene transfer between microbes, which can influence adaptation and resilience of the gut and its ecosystem. Fungi has a less clear role, though. Some fungi are harmless or even symbiotic under normal conditions. For example, Saccharomyces boulardii is a yeast that's actually used as a probiotic in certain cases like antibiotic-associated diarrhea. But others, like Candida albicans, can become opportunistic and cause problems if the immune system is weakened or balance is disrupted. So why do I say probiotics are overhyped? Well, I want to make a few points and bring in some studies to back up those points. Number 1, we are not supposed to get massive pills filled with billions of bacteria introduced into our guts on a daily basis. Our gut microbiome changes slowly and in response to the food that we eat, especially the fiber we eat. Number 2, you can take a probiotic, but if your diet does not reflect the environment through which those bacteria flourish, then those bacteria will just die off and could also cause harm. This is where fiber comes into play once again. And number 3, probiotic strains are not well understood in anywhere close to all contexts. And in fact, here is a list of people that should be cautious about probiotics. Immunocompromised patients. They have a weak immune system and can't clear bacteria that translocate. They also have a risk of bloodstream infections and sepsis. People with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Adding more bacteria worsens bloating, gas, and brain fogs. Probiotics may also interfere with the immune response or worsen inflammation. IBS or gut dysbiosis sufferers. I have a personal story here. So I have experimented with multiple probiotics. The last one I tried was Onnit's Total Gut Health Probiotic, and it absolutely made my gut symptoms worse. But if you go online into some of these message boards and some of these, support groups for people with IBS or any other diseases, one of the main things that they recommend to people is taking a probiotic. And this speaks to how reactions vary. Probiotics aren't universally beneficial. People that are post-GI surgery or short bowel syndrome patients, shortened intestines equals faster translocation and weaker defense. I'll get into what translocation is here in a moment. People with central lines or catheters, Bacteria that leak into the bloodstream can colonize devices like those. Direct access to circulation raises the stakes even higher. People with histamine intolerance or DAO issues. I talked about DAO in my allergy episode. DAO is diamine oxidase. That's one of the major histamine enzymes that we have. Certain strains of bacteria in some of these probiotics produce histamine, worsening allergies or GI issues. Infants, especially premature. Infants have underdeveloped gut and immunity. There are documented deaths from probiotic-associated sepsis. And lastly, we have patients on immunosuppressive medications. Even if not sick, drugs like steroids or biologics reduce defenses. So anyways, I want to back all this up with a bit of science. You always hear about the benefits of probiotics. What about the negatives? The first one is a 2021 study entitled Effect of Probiotics on Incident Ventilator-Associated Pneumonia in Critically Ill Patients, a randomized clinical trial. This is out of JAMA. The study was done on a population of 2,653 ICU patients on mechanical ventilation. There were two groups. First group was probiotics group with 1,318 patients. They received lactobacillus rhamnosus, and then the control group of 1,332 patients, and they received the placebo. The duration was a median of 9 days of treatment. The primary outcome measured was ventilator-associated pneumonia rate. Probiotics was 21.9%, and the control group was 21.3%, with a hazard ratio of 1.03. So the conclusion here was no benefits. Probiotics didn't reduce pneumonia rates. The secondary outcomes measured included ICU-acquired infections, diarrhea, antimicrobial use, mortality, and then also ICU or hospital length of stay. The result, no differences between groups on any of these endpoints. So why am I bringing this study up? Well, here is where things get crazy. There was a major signal of adverse events. In the probiotics group, 15 patients had lactobacillus rhamnosus show up in a sterile site, the blood, or dominate a non-sterile site. The control group only had one case. First, what's a non-sterile site? When they say lactobacillus rhamnosus dominated a non-sterile site, it means the probiotic bacteria kind of took over an area in the body where there's usually a mix of microbes, like the gut, mouth, or lungs. Normally, those places have a balanced ecosystem, lots of different bacteria all doing their things. But in this case, the probiotic strain was found in really high amounts, basically pushing out everything else, and that's not a good sign. It's like planting a helpful flower in your garden, and suddenly it's growing so fast, it's choking out all the other plants. In a sick or vulnerable person, that kind of takeover can throw things off. Giving probiotics increase the risk of bacterial translocation or infection by 14-fold, even though it didn't help prevent pneumonia or any other ICU outcome. So I mentioned translocation a couple times. What is translocation? Imagine your gut is like a zoo. It's packed with bacteria, but they're all supposed to stay inside their cages, your intestines. The walls of your gut are like security fences. Bacterial translocation is when those bacteria escape the zoo and sneak into parts of the body they're not supposed to be in, like your blood, your organs, or deep tissues. In this study, the probiotics, the lactobacillus rhamnosus, that were supposed to stay in the gut escaped and were found in places like the bloodstream, which should be completely sterile. That's not just a mess up. That can be really dangerous. Once bacteria gets into sterile areas, they can cause serious infections. So even though the probiotics were meant to help, they ended up breaking out of the gut and causing new problems instead of solving any. Next up, we have this study from 2018 entitled Post-Antibiotic Gut Mucosal Microbiome Reconstitution is Impaired by Probiotics and Improved by Autologous FMT. This is out of the journal Cell. This one caught my attention because it's often said that antibiotics don't just wreck whatever infection you're contending with, but they also wipe out your gut flora. According to the CDC, inappropriate antibiotic prescribing remains a concern. They estimate that at least 28% of antibiotics prescribed in outpatient settings are unnecessary, highlighting the need for continuing education on the matter. Also, according to data from Single Care, which tracks prescription fills, amoxicillin, which is an antibiotic, was the second most filled prescription in 2022. You can see from this image that other antibiotics like azithromycin and amoxicillin and cephalexin also featured prominently on the list. Why does that matter? Well, a lot of people are told to take a probiotic after they finished a course of antibiotics. So this leads me back to this study. So imagine this. Scientists wanted to know what helps your gut heal the fastest after antibiotics wipe out your good bacteria. They tested this on both mice and people, like a science experiment, in two parts. Step one, everyone, mice and humans, took strong antibiotics to wipe out their gut bacteria. Step two, after the antibiotics, they split them into three groups. There was the probiotic group. These subjects got a commercial mix of 11 probiotic strains, common ones you would find in supplement stores or on Amazon. The idea was to see if probiotics could help repopulate the gut faster and better. There was also an AFMT group, autologous fecal microbiota transplant. These participants got their own pre-antibiotic stool reintroduced into their gut. So basically, they took a stool sample before the antibiotics were introduced so that they could preserve their gut bacteria. Then they transplanted their poop back into them. Think of it like restoring a backup file on a computer. It's your exact original gut bacteria just brought back in. And then the third group was the spontaneous recovery group. No pills, no transplant. This group did nothing and let their bodies recover naturally to see how long that process takes on its own. Step 3 was measurement. Instead of just using stool tests, which don't tell the full story, they also looked directly at the gut lining using scopes and tissue biopsies. That gave them a clear view of how deeply each approach restored both the bacteria and the gut's gene activity. Here are the results. We're going to start off with the rodents. For the probiotic group, the probiotics barely took hold. The mice's guts didn't accept most of the bacteria, and their original microbiome stayed disrupted. Basically, the probiotics showed up, and the gut said, "You're not from around these parts." For the AFMT group, mice given their own pre-antibiotic gut bacteria, their own poop back, bounced back really fast. Their microbiomes and gut function were restored almost completely, like nothing ever even happened. And for the spontaneous group, these mice recovered slowly on their own, not as fast as the poop transplant group, but still better than the probiotic group. Now for the parallel human results. For the probiotic group, just like in the mice, the probiotics didn't colonize well. Even when they didn't restore normal function. Worse, they slowed down recovery. The people's natural bacteria took months longer to return compared to the other groups. For the AFMT group, these participants had the best outcome. Their gut microbiome and gene expression snapped back to normal really quickly, faster and more fully than anyone else. Their own bacteria worked like a custom key and a custom lock. And for the spontaneous group, they recovered naturally over time. Wasn't instant, but their guts eventually returned to normal without outside help, and still faster than the probiotic group. I really like these parallel study designs because the human data shows the correlation, and then the mouse data helps test for causation. Just to drive that home, we have one more study from 2021 entitled Dietary Fiber and Probiotics Influence the Gut Microbiome and Melanoma Immunotherapy Response. It's out of the journal Science. Very similarly to the previous study, they did both humans and mice. We're going to start with the human study. This was 128 patients with advanced melanoma, and they were tracked during their immune checkpoint blockade therapy, specifically anti-PD-1 therapy, which is basically the following. PD-1 stands for programmed death 1. It is a receptor on T cells. Those are like your immune cells, your immune soldiers. When PD-1 binds to its partner, PD-L1, often found on tumor cells, it tells the T cell to stand down or not to attack. So PD-1 plus PD-L1 equals immune suppression, and this is how cancer cells hide from the immune system. During the trial, researchers recorded fiber intake, probiotic use, and treatment outcomes. And the goal was to see if diet or supplements changed how well the cancer treatment worked. In the parallel mouse study, mice were implanted with melanoma tumors and treated with anti-PD-1 therapy, just like the humans. The mice were fed different diets, for example, high fiber versus low fiber diets, and some mice were also given probiotic supplements. Researchers then measured tumor growth, immune cell activity, and gut microbiome composition. So why do both? Again, the human data shows the correlation. People who eat more fiber do better. And then the mouse data helps test for causation, meaning when we give mice more fiber, their tumors shrink more. It's like using the human data to spot the pattern and the mouse data to see if the pattern still holds when you control everything very tightly. So I'm going to slap some images on the screen. Panel A is showing human survival via dietary fiber intake. The groups compared in this panel are sufficient fiber intake, the green line, defined as greater than or equal to 20 grams of fiber per day, and insufficient fiber intake, which is the yellow line, which is less than 20 grams of fiber. There's no stratification by probiotic use just yet. This is purely looking at the effect of fiber. The key result here is that higher fiber intake is associated with better progression-free survival in melanoma patients undergoing immune checkpoint blockade therapy. Now let's take it a step further and introduce probiotics. Panel B. Panel B is showing human survival via fiber and probiotics use. What it shows is survival curves stratified by fiber intake and probiotics. The groups we're showing here is that the red equals sufficient fiber with no probiotics, blue is insufficient fiber with no probiotics, green is sufficient fiber with probiotics, and purple is insufficient fiber with probiotics. And the key result here is that the best outcomes were in patients with high fiber, no probiotics. The worst outcomes were seen in groups using probiotics, even if fiber intake was high. So my final thoughts are this. I am not saying probiotics are always harmful, but the data is clear in these studies at least. Fiber helped people recover faster, respond better to treatment, and rebuild their gut naturally. Probiotics didn't do that. In fact, they sometimes got in the way, and in vulnerable patients, they've even been found outside the gut where they don't belong. That's not harmless. So if you're serious about supporting your health, stop chasing the latest capsule and start feeding the ecosystem you already have, because the answer isn't in a pill. It's on your plate. But that's it for me. Once again, my name is Randall James, and this is Always Adaptive, a business born from the idea that you are always adapting, literally right this second. Whether you're lying down or sitting down, you are providing an input into your nervous system that you are adapting to. Me right now, I'm standing. I'm adapting to this. So control the input you provide into your body, and you can control your life. If you learned something new from this episode, then make sure to hit the subscribe and comment down below whatever it was that you learned. Let me know what it was, or let me know if you disagree. I would love to hear that too. I also love to hear feedback, whether it's my audio and video quality or the cadence of my speech. If I speak too fast or if I speak too slow, I don't know. I'm down to do better. But I will see you at the next one. Stay adaptive.